You think of a medicine cabinet as a place for cures, right? Not for killers. But in India, that's exactly what happened. A simple treatment for a child's cough spiraled into a national tragedy. So let's dig in and figure out what went so horribly wrong. It all starts with this one devastating number, 17. That's 17 children dead. And not from some rare, incurable disease, but from acute kidney failure. The heartbreaking part, it was caused by something their parents gave them to help them, to make them feel better. So this brings us to the most horrifying question at the heart of all this. How on earth does something as common as cough syrup, something probably in your own cabinet right now, turn into a deadly poison? To get to the bottom of that, we have to look at what was actually inside those bottles. All right, Section 1. A cure becomes a poison. So, the first thing investigators had to do was figure out the source of this tragedy. They needed to pinpoint the exact products that parents were giving their kids. And what they found, well, it was deeply alarming. It turns out there were 3 specific brands. Indian health authorities flagged them as officially toxic: Coldrif, Respifresh TR, and ReLife. Okay, so these were the culprits. But why? What was in them that was so incredibly deadly? Which brings us to Section 2, the hidden toxin, DEG. The answer, it turns out, was a single deadly ingredient, a chemical contaminant that has absolutely no business being in any medicine, period. That chemical is called diethylene glycol, or DEG for short. Now, what's so important to get here is that this stuff isn't medicine. Not even close. It's an industrial solvent. The kind of thing you'd find in antifreeze or brake fluid. It is extremely poisonous to humans and especially to kids. And when someone swallows it, the effects are just catastrophic. It's like a wrecking ball inside the body. It causes acute kidney injury, severe neurological damage, and eventually multi-organ failure. Tragically, the symptoms those 17 children had were a textbook case of DEG poisoning. Okay, on to Section 3, a system-wide failure. Because as investigators started digging deeper, they realized they had to ask a much bigger question. Just how deep did this contamination actually go? And they quickly found out this wasn't just a single isolated mistake at one factory. No, the problem was much, much bigger than that. And this is the really crucial part. The 3 toxic syrups, they came from 3 totally separate, unrelated drug companies in different parts of India. So this wasn't just one bad apple, it was a huge red flag pointing to a major vulnerability in quality control across the entire industry. To really grasp the scale of this contamination, just get this. The safe, permissible limit for DEG in medicine is tiny, just 0.1%. Now, in the Coldrif syrup, the one linked to those 17 deaths, tests found 48.6%. That is not a mistake, that's an absolutely unimaginable level of poison. This table here really lays it all out. Coldrif, as we saw, was nearly 500 times over the legal limit for DEG. But look at the other 2, Respifresh and ReLife. They were also way over what's considered safe. Every single one of these represents a catastrophic failure of safety standards. One analysis we looked at really summed it up perfectly. It said this whole episode highlights a critical gap in pharmaceutical safety. In other words, the systems that are supposed to keep our drugs safe, they failed. And it shows an urgent need for better monitoring and way stricter enforcement. So that brings us to Section 4, the nationwide crackdown. With a full-blown public health emergency on their hands, what did the officials do? Well, to their credit, Indian authorities acted fast and they acted decisively to stop this from getting any worse. They basically took 4 immediate and absolutely crucial steps. First, they banned all 3 brands. Then, they ordered a complete halt to production. They issued urgent nationwide recalls to get every last bottle off the shelves. And they launched full-scale criminal investigations into the companies that made them. And the response also included some serious accountability. The owner of Sresan Pharmaceuticals, that's the company that made Coldrif, the deadliest syrup, was arrested. This sent a clear signal that there would be real legal consequences for these kinds of failures. At the same time, a massive public health alert went out all over the country. The instructions for parents and doctors were crystal clear. Stop using these syrups immediately. Watch your children for any warning signs of poisoning. We're talking vomiting or changes in urination. And if you see anything, report it to the health authorities right away. And that leads us to our final section, the lingering question. So the immediate danger was contained, but what's left is the massive impact on public health. What's the big lesson here? And maybe more importantly, what does a tragedy like this mean for our trust in the medicines we take for granted every single day?
Because when you boil it all down, this tragedy was never just about 3 bad syrups. What it really did was expose a fundamental weakness in the safety net. All the regulations, the testing, the oversight that we all just assume is there, protecting us from this kind of harm.
And so we're left with a really deeply unsettling question. When a simple cure can actually kill, it forces you to ask, who can we trust to keep us safe? And what needs to fundamentally change to make sure something like this can never, ever happen again?